Okay, let's just get right into it. We all have that voice in our head, right? It's just a fundamental part of being human. And sometimes it's our greatest coach, pushing us, cheering us on. But let's be real. A lot of the time, it can be our absolute worst critic, trapping us in these endless loops of doubt and worry. So, the big question is, how do we handle this thing? How do we manage this constant companion? I mean, who hasn't felt this way before? This is an anonymous quote, but man, does it hit home. You know that feeling when that voice just gets stuck on repeat, replaying every mistake, second guessing every single decision, just being a total pain? It feels like a universal problem, and it is. But here's the good news. It turns out it's also a solvable one. So the story behind the leading research on this is actually pretty wild. It started with a psychologist named Ethan Kross. He gets this really disturbing, threatening letter at his university office. And that night, he is just completely consumed by fear. He's pacing his living room in the dark with a baseball bat, his mind just racing in this agonizing loop. And this incredibly personal crisis, it forced him to confront his own inner critic head on and spark this whole scientific journey to understand this thing he now calls chatter. But, okay, before we go any further, we have to get one thing straight. Our inner voice is not the enemy here. Seriously, it's actually one of our most brilliant evolutionary tools. This ability to talk to ourselves, to have this internal monologue, is what lets us plan and create and just make sense of the entire world. Get this. Our inner voice operates at a speed equivalent to speaking 4,000 words a minute. 4,000. To put that in perspective, a president's State of the Union address is maybe 6,000 words, and it takes about an hour. Our brain does nearly that much talking to itself in 60 seconds. It's this incredible speed that powers everything from our memory to our self-control to our creativity. So, if the inner voice is this amazing superpower, where does it all go so wrong? Well, the problem happens when that powerful tool turns against us. It's when the inner coach gets benched and the inner critic grabs the microphone and takes over the entire stadium. And that brings us to the core concept for today: chatter. Now, this isn't just regular old negative self-talk. It's a very specific thing. It's that cycle of repetitive, negative thoughts that just magnifies our worst emotions. It's when we look inside for advice, hoping to find our inner coach, but instead we find our inner critic with a megaphone. And look, this isn't just about feeling bad for a little while. Unchecked chatter has real, tangible costs that can seriously derail our lives. It's like having a saboteur operating from inside your own headquarters. So just how vulnerable are we to this? Well, the research is kind of staggering. It shows we spend a third to even half of our waking lives not living in the present moment. Our minds are constantly wandering, and this mental time travel, it's the prime territory where chatter loves to set up camp. So, what does this internal saboteur actually do? Well, first, it absolutely crushes our performance. Think of the star baseball pitcher Rick Ankiel, who, in the middle of the playoffs, suddenly couldn't throw a strike because his mind was just screaming at him. Second, it really damages our relationships. We vent to our friends to get support, but if we do it too much, all that negativity can push away the very people we need the most. And third, it harms our health by basically locking our bodies into a state of chronic stress. And that health connection? It's even more direct than you might think. In one landmark study, Cross found that the brain scans of someone feeling social rejection looked almost identical to the scans of someone in physical pain. That feeling of heartbreak, the torment from chatter, it's not just in your head. Your brain processes it like a real physical injury. Okay, so that's the problem. And let's be honest, it's a big one. It's paralyzing, it's isolating, and it's even physically damaging. But here's the pivot. The good news is we actually have the power to change the conversation. The question is, how? The solution isn't about finding an off switch. It's about building a mental toolbox. The goal is not to silence your inner voice. That's basically impossible, and you wouldn't want to anyway. It's too valuable. The goal is to gain perspective, to shift your thinking just enough to turn the volume down on that critic and let the coach back in the game. So how do we actually do that? Well, science has identified a bunch of really effective tools for creating that mental distance. Let's walk through 4 of the most powerful ones that you can start using pretty much right away. First up, distanced self-talk. This is such a simple but ridiculously powerful linguistic hack. When you're stuck in chatter, you're usually using I statements, right? I feel terrible. Why am I like this? The trick is to just switch pronouns. Use your own name or the word you. It's what LeBron James famously did when making his huge decision to leave Cleveland. He said, I wanted to do what was best for LeBron James. That tiny shift creates instant psychological distance. The second tool is all about visualization. Instead of replaying a stressful memory through your own eyes, try to see it like you're a fly on the wall, just a neutral observer watching the scene. This little shift in perspective lets you analyze what happened with a lot more clarity and a lot less emotional baggage. A third tool is what they call temporal distancing, basically mental time travel. When you're totally consumed by a problem, just ask yourself, how am I going to feel about this in a month, a year, 10 years? It reminds you that this intense distress is temporary, which instantly reduces its power. And a fourth tool is just normalizing your experience. It's about reminding yourself that you are not alone in this, that millions of people have gone through something similar. It connects your struggle to our shared humanity. Okay, so those are some of the tools inside your head. But your mental toolbox isn't the only resource you have. We can also use our physical world, our environment, and relationships to help calm our minds from the outside in. Let's look at 3 surprisingly simple but really effective ways you can leverage your surroundings to fight back against chatter. Creating a little order, getting some exposure to nature, and seeking out experiences of awe. First up, order. The tennis superstar Rafael Nadal is famous for his on-court rituals, like perfectly aligning his water bottles. He says it helps him find the order I seek in my head. This is a perfect example of what scientists call compensatory control. Basically, when we feel internally chaotic, creating external order helps restore our sense of calm and control. Next, greenery. There was this famous study done in Chicago housing projects. It found that residents whose apartments overlooked green spaces had better focus and felt life's problems were less overwhelming than those who were just looking at barren concrete. Even just a view of nature can help restore the mental energy we need to fight chatter. And finally, seek out awe. You know that feeling, right? When you're in the presence of something vast and just incredible, like looking up at a starry night sky or standing at the edge of the Grand Canyon. That feeling is awe, and experiencing it has been shown to shrink the self, which makes our personal problems feel smaller and less important by comparison. It's a powerful way to get instant perspective. So let's pull it all together. Here's your chatter toolbox. You've got your mental tools, using distant self-talk, taking that fly-on-the-wall perspective, traveling through time, and normalizing your experience. And you've got your external tools, creating order, finding greenery, and seeking awe. Every single one of these is a science-backed strategy to help you manage that inner conversation. And here is the most important takeaway of all. Chatter feels huge, it feels overwhelming, but we are not powerless against it. Remember, the goal isn't to shut that voice up. It's way too valuable for that. The real goal is to become the conductor of your own inner orchestra, using these tools to create a more helpful, more harmonious inner world. At the end of the day, that inner dialogue you have, it shapes your reality more than anything else. It can be your worst enemy, or it can be your most trusted advisor. The science shows you have the tools to influence that conversation. So the only real question left is, what are you going to say next?